All good.
All right, so we're back. I think I can link these up, but in the case I can't, I will post them into two series. But let's hop back into what you got going on genetic-wise, Chadwick. You sent me some gear for the Regenerative Seed Co-op. Maybe we should start there. Moroccans.
Yeah, the Belgium. Yeah, that was something we did this summer, actually. My partner procured some seeds from Beldia, which is in Morocco. Many of the land races in Morocco are getting tainted, if you will, just with new breeds, entering the fields in some areas. But this Beldia stuff that we got a hold of was from, if I got to make sure I get this right, the Rift Mountains, the Rift Mountain area, yeah. So it's an extremely fast flowering sativa. I had no clue. Whenever I popped the seeds, I was popping, Lebanese seeds, Nanda Devi from India. I was popping Himalayan seeds, Panama Red, all at the same time that I popped these Belgia seeds that we had. I got 10 of them, and out of the 10, 2 females I was able to keep and 1 male, but it was very hard to keep the female to bed as well. The only way I was able to get them to kind of come back vegging a bit was to just keep cutting them back. But they have beautiful structure, and the reason I was struggling was I was waiting to get outdoors with them. So I do all my breeding outdoors. I don't do any tent breeding or anything indoors at all. So I have to plan way ahead. Needless to say, I got this Belgia female that I'd picked, had beautiful structure, lower branches coming up pretty high, which is kind of rare for the Belgia stuff. I ran her and she flowered like late May. She started flowering on me. So this stuff, I wasn't even sure this has got to be day neutral or quasi, auto flowering. And sure enough, I asked him to ask them, the people that he got it from, and sure enough, that's the case. They've even run it indoor as well, and it's auto flowering for them. And it's we haven't tried it indoor at all yet, so that's the jury's still out on that. But on their end, they claim that it does just fine indoors. It's got a real sweet, honey, minty, vanilla taste to it. It's not like anything that you've ever really tasted out of, the domestic varieties that we see here in the States. It's a little looser than I would have hoped for back in the day, but I've learned, of course, that that's not, necessarily the thing to look for in the flower.
And so the stuff you sent was...
I sent you some pictures of every...
I was going to say their F2s is what you sent me, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So the stuff your buddies, I'll get to my point in a second, but the stuff your buddies were looking at was F1, correct? Or was it the seeds that you sent me, the F2s?
Well, remembering that these guys are selecting, but yes, you're right. That's right. My buddy bought F1s.
We just had Mandalorian on here, Dan, and he's been working with autos for 10 years, and he broke this down, and I want to make sure Dan will give me straightened out if I get it wrong. But and this is what we found. What happened when I bought these seeds that were supposed to be auto flowers, and they probably were auto flowers in the F1 generation. But then when you go to the F2 generation, or in this case, the seeds that we had, it opened up into all these categories where we have one category where we have true autos, one category where you have these semi-autos that are like easy early flowering, easy triggering plants, and then one that are the more true photo period type. So it'd be interesting to see what's in these F2s, if they're holding true to the auto trait, or if they are, or in process. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and I think that it's hard to know where that auto code is carried on the alleles in the genetic code, and definitely it hinges on the progenitors. Now, I expect to see a lot. Most of them auto in these F2s because they were, they were farmed many generations on the front side. What we don't know are how many males do they leave out in the field. Are they selecting 6 or 7 males that they like and leaving these guys out there and letting the pollen just blow around? Based on the seeds that I saw, everything was very homozygous. And since it was homozygous, I'm a little bit more inclined to believe that the F2s will be mostly auto-flowering, but maybe he knows something I don't know about genetics.
So, Josh sent me these auto number 2 by Auto Hemps, and they did this like, there were some of them that were definitely like, a lot of them, at least with the males, they start forming balls under 18 hours of light. They start forming balls, but the balls just never opened. And I was growing them next to autopilots and a bunch of other auto flowers, and they would go. But these kind of stalled out, and then when the light schedule dropped down to like just day, so here we're at 10 hours a day. A week after that, the balls started to open. It was like they were like in frozen auto suspension, where they weren't like fully. That they were there. They just didn't want to cross over to the other side.
Yeah, lightly hermaphroditic.
What's that?
Lightly hermaphroditic.
I didn't know. There was no hermaphroditic trait.
Oh, this isn't a female you're talking about. You're talking about a male.
It was easier to see this suspended flowering in the males than the females, because the females just form calyxes, right? So as they're forming the calyxes, it's hard to say what point in the development stage they are, especially when it's a first-time plant and you're not totally sure about. I haven't grown this cross before, so I didn't know what to see necessarily in the females. The females were forming calyxes and getting frostier and moving along what I would presume is a standard flowering trajectory. But the males, they just formed, and I was for the males to dump on the females because I wanted to do a seed increase, and they wouldn't release. They just wouldn't release, and so that's where I say it was like sort of a suspended animation flowering, because as soon as like a week after I dropped them down to the regular light schedule, they just started opening. So it was like they got halfway there. Not a plant that was half and half.
Yeah. This stuff flowered in like I'd say 7.5 weeks, really quickly. Real clear head, focus high. It's narrow leaflet stuff. I couldn't believe how fast it flies. The fastest flowering, sativa-like plant. that I'm with experience with autoflowers, but I do know about them, and I understand the ruderalis connection, and you know, I keep myself up on things. But the seeds were really small, I might note, and but in this F2, they're a little bit bigger than they were, and I'm having pretty good success with germination. So we'll
What do we
see. I've
expect
got some
from like the calyxes and the flower structure?
Well, I had the pictures that I sent Joshua. I mean, I can describe the female, the mother, but I haven't seen these F2s flower yet. So, you know, this is uncharted territory right now as far as past veg. You know, now everything that I've popped in veg on these F2s, I'm at the 4th node on a lot of them, and everything looks the same. Looks like it's the same. So, and I'm excited about that because that's what I was hoping for. I didn't expect that it would necessarily go that way, but it's so far. Yeah. So anyway, the mother flowers were, like I said, it was it flowered everywhere up the branch. So in other words, the colas were 18 inches from top to the bottom, flowers filling in the whole way. Not super dense though, not foxtail, really hairy bud. Now, Moroccan, cultivars or varieties, I should say, are known for hashish making, and that would make sense that it's a little bit trichome production versus a dense bud. For me personally, I'm looking to cross these F2s with the 88 skunk males that I have. And I'm looking to get some early flowering stuff out of it.
What's and I haven't smoked, I unfortunately haven't got a chance to smoke the 88. We were talking about it earlier, but what's the bud structure on that like?
You will in April. Yeah,
dude. I'll just say this now. I haven't announced it or planned it, but we are going to do after the conference. We're going to do a 420 party, and I want to do a regenerative cannabis cup on 420 up there. And so you should say some of that to put in the cup. Yeah. Well, it won't make a big no money thing. Just make it a fun thing, like where we put jars out and the jar with the most weed gone wins, something like that,
Yeah, exactly like Jodry explained it.
Yeah.
This skunk's a little bit more fruity, which wasn't the direction that he was really looking to take that skunk program whenever I think he was doing it. But for me, we were looking for fruits over here, and I'm down, all day with those fruits as far as having them in my palate as a breeder. So, but yeah, burnt rubber though, man. This stuff is, it's like if you got your tennis shoe on and your buddy's driving like say 30 or 40 and you just burn it right. It's really right there in the smell and the terp profile on the front side of the smoke. But as soon as you get it in your lungs, it's real fruity and pleasant and a blast from the past for me. I mean, I expected a different skunk actually. But when I tasted this one, I was like, yeah, that's right. I know this taste. That's right. That's been a long time since I've had that too, And so it's thrilling to have something like that just show up, in your garden, and it is exactly what Jodry said it was. Bulletproof on everything. Powdery mildew, bulletproof on that. Bulletproof on botrytis. As long as healthy. I did have a mother that wasn't super healthy that some botrytis got on some of the bud. on, but I had one grow really nice in the garden. That's all I put in was one, and I'm super happy with it. I'm super happy that I got to seed it up, and the stuff's looking nice that's come off of it.
Well, let me ask you about you're doing this thing in Mass, this new facility. It's about to pop off. I think in the next month or two, you're going to be moving down there.
Yeah.
What genetics are you stoked on? What do you like? Do you have a rack that you're ready to move into that facility and kind of spark off with? And if so, yeah, what is it?
Yeah, that's the
can
plan.
You share?
Yeah, I'll share as much as I can. About a year and a half ago, I was approached by my partner who is down in Massachusetts. Local investors, 4 guys that are really cool that wanted to jump into the cannabis game. You know, there's a couple of big time guys over in Mass. They're not playing real fair, and so that's kind of kept my buddy and other people out of the Massachusetts market. Is some of the big guys are playing tough, and these guys, you know, start up. They had plenty of money, plenty of audacity, and asked me and my partner to consult for them and help design their layout and, you know, give them the know-how. They had very little cannabis experience. A couple of the investors have had a little bit of experience, but the other 2 didn't as much. And go last year and a half a lot about cannabis and going through the Massachusetts market. Basically, we're all the way through regulation, where we've gotten our occupancy permit. We bought they bought a building in Apple. It was actually an old Agway building, and so I went in and designed the layout of this old Agway building in Apple, and then a couple of greenhouses connected to that. That building's about 5,000 square feet. It'll be all indoor. You got to have indoor stuff anyway. You know, safes and everything you got to have just to play the game in Massachusetts. I think these guys are about $1.8 million deep. And is CCC's final inspection of the facility. We'll certainly pass that. If we don't, it looks like that we'll be populating the facility right around February 1st or thereabouts. There's been delays all the way along. We thought we were going to be in there, of course, 9 months ago, maybe a year ago. I have the patience of Job, so that's worked out really well. The great thing about these guys is they've allowed us to, you know, convince them that the regenerative organic methodology is the only way to go. Top shelf cannabis, grown in a craft manner is the only way to go to separate yourself from the pack. To do that in Massachusetts, the name of the company is 1620 Labs. You can see that it's all public information. We're really excited. So yeah, I do have production varieties that I'm looking that we're looking to take from my library and inject into that system, and we're also keeping our eyes open for potentially a cut that might be worth showcasing from another breeder. We're not completely closed off to just using my stuff. That would be silly in business. But yeah, we're pretty excited. We're hoping that in February that we can populate some plants and maybe by next fall come to market with something that's been properly cured. Massachusetts folks.
Nice. Bring back the old Massachusetts heirlooms. The public needs them.
I've had a hard time, so I've been trying to entice breeders out of Mass to talk to me, to try to get them on the Regenerative panel there the next time the Joshua and company comes to town. I've asked a couple, and they're like, dude, I just can't go public yet. I do have one breeder that I'm excited to hopefully get you guys to bring on board for that panel. A guy, Weaving Genetics, he goes by. Weaving Genetics. He's on Instagram, and he's a local kid that's down in South Portland, which is right where that conference was held last year and will be this year. And
nice.
I was going to ask about.
Massachusetts wasn't always the friendliest state.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the grow methodologies. You said, you know, they're going with regenerative. What's that like? What's that look like? You know, what's the design? Or, you know, what are your practices that you're bringing into play? Are you KNF? What do you do? You know?
Yeah, it's going to be. We're going to actually be using the Soil Kings soil as a base, and then adding some amendments that we've done a lot of beta testing of different types of soils. Right now, to come out of the gate, we couldn't build our own soils the way that we're doing it. So we got a bedroom and a flower room in that facility that's indoors. We'll be flowering old school soil, hand watering to start with, under metal halides in veg and under HPS in flowering. Those are all hoods that are hooked up, you know, all top of the line facility stuff on benches. So yeah, the soil we're gonna be completely organic, you know, and methodologies. There'll be no shady stuff at all on that side of it. We'll have compost tea brewer that'll feed weekly. We've had probably 2 systems set up, one for the flowering room, bedroom, so that we have a little bit of control over that. Our long-term goal with this place is we don't have the greenhouses start out old school indoor method to the first probably 2 or 3 crops, maybe just 2, and then the greenhouses will come into play. But we'll veg. Our mothers will be in the greenhouse under full spectrum sun. Because we're in Massachusetts, we'll have to supplement the light in the wintertime in those greenhouses, but they'll get some full spectrum. We'll clone and veg in greenhouses, and then hopefully bring those strong, you know, plants in and flower them in the facility. And then we also have another greenhouse flowering facility where we'll do light depth, and up here it's more light suck than it is light depth. So we'll have both kinds of flower, and we'll certainly advertise it as that as well, I think. You know, call them in, I don't know. A lot of these new words that are being used, I'm not a big fan of, like recreational. I like to call it consumer instead of recreational marijuana. So yeah, old school soil building. You know, we'll have the normal stuff that you guys are used to seeing in a soil that somebody's built, like you know, kelp meal and alfalfa meal and biochar to add, you know, carbon and you know, a little more magnesium depending on. But we're going to rely on soil analysis. I worked with Patrick and got him and got some of his soil over here, and then used a lot of these other soils, bag soils that have been used on the East Coast a lot, like 707 and Pro Mix, and we took them all to the University of Maine and had them tested. And we were the most impressed with the soil. We had really good luck with it. Consistency and profile and structure is probably what we were the most, and the fact that it was a good palette for us to build on. So that's where we're starting out. A lot of people, want to frown on, well, you're shipping soil all the way from the West Coast. Well, most bag soils are from the West Coast, so we have to deal with that. There's a few from over here, or a couple, but the problem is they're not any good. So we have to do what work. The good news is that I believe the Soil King, those guys are looking at expanding into Pennsylvania and starting to make some of the soil there. So we're looking to maybe try to be a part of a partnership that encourages that. Shipping is it's costly, but it's not. We're still able to be competitive.
What's the bottleneck with just producing it locally? There's no plants out there that can do custom blends and deliver on the East Coast with the same inputs and the same. There's nobody out there who can deliver a built soil to spec.
Yeah. Well, we can build it. I've done it myself a lot. It was one of the great experiments I got to do in college. With soil science class and lab, I really concentrated on peats and cocos and soil structure and size of and all that stuff. And the truth is that you just can't go in and buy a knockdown soil at the places that are selling it here. We only have a couple of grow stores around. Like for me, I have to drive 45 miles to the nearest one. And there's another one just about a mile beyond that, and the selection isn't great. I mean, so you can build it yourself, or you have to go farther to get it. For us, we would rather build the perfect soil like I can, but it's not cost effective. You can't run a facility like that, especially going, indoor where inputs are going to be a little bit high on us early on. Phase 2 of 1620's plan is to get an outdoor facility and to, have an active program. And
well, I was going to say, it's not like out in the West Coast where we have a ton of soil mixing companies, all up and down the West Coast. Right. We are putting out grass companies in Oregon. We have tons of agriculture that happens that gets shipped all over the country, and it's that potted, so we have the soil mixers. I have 2 or 3 within 20 miles of me. So but I remember when I lived in Minnesota, it was a lot harder, and everything was harder to find. Chicken feed, tons of things that just didn't make sense to me, and because I was just used to the West Coast, where I'm from, and so just throwing that out there as a
75% of the 75% of the products on the shelves over here in grocery stores are from the West Coast or somewhere else. Michigan.
Yeah. Well, what's behind you back there, man?
I've got some skunks that I've been working with on the right. That's Stephen's over here. And Hindu Kush. My partner was, or a good friend of mine was at that Regenerative conference last year in Portland. He asked Nakona Jodri, hey, we really want to breed something into that skunk, but we don't know what. Do you have a good idea? And he gave us some good ideas. Hindu Kush, Shubnite Pure Kush was his suggestion. So we went out and got Hindu Kush. right away. I'd say about 7 seedlings right now out of 10. 3, I've just eliminated 3 on structure and a couple of things, and we're going to run a boy from the Hindu Kush into the 88. I'll probably run about 3 males into that 88 this summer in the garden.
Yeah, and so you're doing everything you said earlier. You're doing everything outdoors, which, it's a lot of planning, a lot of time. Like I'm blessed to have some grow rooms.
Yeah, I could do the indoor thing if I really wanted to reach out, but for me personally, my motivation was early finishing and terroir. Up here in Maine, if I could finish something here at the 45th. And you can get it anywhere you can get it done anywhere on the East Coast. That was my thought process. It's working out to be a good thing. Everybody wants early finish up here.
Sounds like the Pacific Northwest is very similar to the Pacific Northeast. I mean, the Atlantic Northeast.
Yeah, I'm motivated. But I'm also motivated by breeding in soil. My garden, all of my plants outdoor go in the soil, not pro mix, not, a soil mix at all. A soil that for the last 16 years, that every year I take an analysis to the University of Maine and I get organic recommendations back from them. And then I follow those and tweak that every year, building on it every year, composting and doing a lot of the things that are discussed, right in the conference. So I like breeding with the roots right dug into that, experiencing, of course, the climate in my zone. I'm zone 4A, USDA hardiness. So, I mean, that's really on the cold side. We get 30, minus 30, minus 20 to minus 30 below.
Damn.
In the wintertime.
Yeah, it's crazy the difference. I mean, so I don't get to anything like that. If we get to negative 15, it's holy shit. If we get to 20, it's holy shit. Like, if we get to, honestly, if we get snow, it's holy shit. But I'm up at 49 degrees north, so I'm actually quite a bit further north.
We got 3.
And so the early triggering thing is very huge for me. And we get the rain, early on. Like this year, I had nonstop rain starting the second week of September, and I don't get flower initiation till the second and third week of August on most of the cultivars that the West Coast is used to dealing with, and so that was my hunt this year, is looking through that stuff, the stuff that's going to trigger early. I kept out, all the early triggering males, and then I went through and selected for the stuff that was able to withstand the few things that were able to withstand the bullshit, and that's kind of what I'm going to move forward with.
Yeah, I got my hemp license late, so I could only put out a crop for this late in the year. We've been pummeled by rain. And we dropped down to 31, which is outrageous for here. We don't get down into the negatives, but it's been great as a selection pressure, seeing the plants that are wind and cold hardy and don't mind being waterlogged. I've sacrificed a whole bunch of plants just to figure out who's going to survive, because that's, as a breeder, sometimes you got to make the best of the selection pressure that you don't.
Yeah, you kill so many.
But then, Mike, you kill so many so that they don't die, they multiply in the next generation, right? Because the ones that survive, those are that much closer and to being capable of surviving that. And then, it's fun because even with that, there's okay, you have the ones that are great at surviving the waterlogging, but then you have the ones that maybe can't handle the wind. And so there's several selection pressures given the climate.
So powdery mildew must be a problem where you're at.
Depends on
what your genetics.
It depends on the strain, right? Depends on the strain.
Well, yeah.
Like, I don't see like any pests is necessarily a problem, but there's different environmental challenges that will bring out some of that.
Yep.
When it's not wet, it's dry enough that like I blame powdery mildew on on the nutrient imbalance. Depending on I feel like powdery mildew is a sign of gluttony. The plant's overfed. There's some imbalance in the force, and in my experience, either the strains that are prone to it will exhibit. But if you can figure out how to avoid, you can avoid acquiring the powdery mildew by balancing your mineral matrix and your nutrients. So right now the problem really been cold. I had like several nights down in the 31, so slightly below freezing. We've had probably about 15 to 20 inches of rain in the last 3 weeks. We've got a week of rain coming next week. And so I'd say the bigger challenge than like pest per se is just environmental harshness. They got not much light. They're soaking wet. The winds are wailing. Like, the lankier sativa Christmas tree like plants aren't that happy because their nodes can't support themselves. They get battered and they just like they look like the living dead when they're praying and there's just like actions of its night. But like the squatter, like you said, the lower arched plants that those don't mind it. Even if they bend over a little bit, they readjust, and so it's fun. It's fun to select through and see that, and it's like, yeah, I'm losing a lot to either gophers or the wind, but then the ones that are surviving are going to have characteristics that are desirable for next season.
Yeah. These Belvedere seeds, I selected for that too. That orb shape, they do.
I love that shape.
Yeah, I know some guys that have run
like a suspension bridge.
Yes, that's right. That's right. On poor soil, they were pretty bulletproof. I was really impressed with that. I'm just not used to the bud structure on them, and smoking bud like that, I've never. I mean, I've had so many varieties this year that the Indian landraces that I did Nanda Devi, I did some stuff from Nanda Devi that was just like out of this world, different tasting and terp profile, and I mean, it was like doing cocaine, if you will, after smoking it. Like, it kind of reminds me of how Kevin was describing a variety that made him want to get outside and run alongside the car. Something that he smoked up in Michigan, I think. So I had the same experience with some stuff that some Himalayan landrace, true landrace stuff. I mean, I grew this stuff. It's completely unpredictable. Looks like nothing you can describe. I mean, you can cut it off here and a branch just might shoot out wherever. But the buds do fill in really good on it, and it flowers much quicker because it was way up in the mountains of the Himalayas. So I wasn't quite able to finish here, but I think you might be able to finish this Indian stuff over there in Oregon for sure. I mean, like, for instance, I've had 4 snows here already. We just had 3 inches of it. I mean, if you don't get your plants out where I'm at in Maine by the 2nd week of October, you're spinning out. You're trying too hard. I mean, you could probably finish them. Well, you definitely could with some technique, like with drop pause and whatnot, or stuff like that. And I've done that, but it's just not worth it at that point. And the sun really gets too low for us. So probably not getting very good bud to finish at that point as well. They need some supplemented light just to do what they need to do. So I really can't breed anything that doesn't come out successfully, in my opinion.
I was just going to say that's the big issue here that I've learned here, and it's taken me. I'm only 3 years in the area. I'm from Washington, but I'm up in the northwest corner, and I grew up in the southeast corner, opposite end of the state, and they're totally different. So where I grew up, it's desert and sunny and dry. It gets a little bit cold. And where I live now, it's I'm right 5 minutes to Canada, rainforest, 5 minutes to the beach. But what really happens is around that second week of September, the light just drops. And so for the first year, coming from an indoor grower, into a greenhouse, I was doing de-leafing like a madman. The second week of flower, I'm ripping every fan leaf off those motherfuckers, just like I was used to indoors, and nothing happened. Just stopped production. And I didn't realize there's no sun. They needed those fan leaves, those solar panels. That's what's making everything happen. And I just assumed, incorrectly assumed that because it's outdoor, they're getting way more light than an artificial HPS light. But that's not the case up here. And I've learned that lesson now 3 years in a row. Just boom, we lose. So now now I'm learning, leave those fan leaves on. That they're there for a reason.
Yeah, that's a concept that cultivators really should try to pass on and learn early on. Thing happened with an oak tree, for instance, that underneath the canopy, a seedling oak tree that'll come up, the first leaves that it throws off are huge looking oak leaves. And that's because it's trying to gather all that sunlight. Same thing with cannabis. You want to grow big fat leaves. It's not just an indica or a wide leaflet variety. It might just be the thing trying to get some more sun. Of course, this Nanda Devi stuff I grew, and that Beldia was super narrow. I couldn't imagine getting the leaflets much wider on those. Might be a good experiment to just run in the shade, see what it does. I don't know how they.
I think that a lot of those narrow leaf varieties actually do really well, even in lower light conditions, and that's why I like running sativas in the wintertime, because I think that they grow in equatorial climates where it's 11 hours in the sun. They don't necessarily need the longer. They like that Durban cut that you were talking about. Did you ever run it summer and winter? I've run it both summer and summer and fall, less so than winter. But I find that with the lower light conditions, it doesn't miss a beat in terms of like yield. Whereas there are some varieties that the buds come out a little bit larfier because they didn't get the sunlight that they needed to get dense. But that's what I kind of like about a lot of sativas. They fill in just, maybe they're not super dense buds, but they are what they are in the summer, as they are in the winter in terms of like nug structure. There's other traits that like vary.
And you don't know how dense they were whenever they're in the paper or the bowl. So I do, this time of year is the time of year that I'm beginning to look through my seeds, if you will. I breed in the summer. I have a breeding plan. It's very organized. My partner and I sit down. We take all of these land races that we've, collected, and we've got males that we've either chosen or planned to choose, and we go, okay, we're going to put 15 to this many different females and run. I usually generally pick one male to run in the whole garden. That way I can hunt him to about 4 or 5 nodes, let him flower in the pot or in the ground. I'll set him in the middle of the garden and just allow it to breed right throughout everything. And then I'll do some isolated breeding, further away from that garden. We, at harvest time, do what everybody else is doing, but then there's the seed collection. So through the winter, I go through everything, man. I'm always eager. Can't wait to pop the new beans. Can't wait to pop some of the old ones, and then start the new plan for the next year. And how are we going to progress forward? The thing that I'm looking forward to is having access to testing, having access to a lab and a larger breeding program. We're looking at, in phase 2 of our startup down there in Mass, starting a breeding program and having, somewhere along the lines of a half a dozen or a dozen flowering rooms isolated, dedicated to moving the breeding program along. Probably will be mostly focused on production varieties that'll be great for the Massachusetts. Hopefully developing some nice top shelf type stuff that's packaged super well, and then dedicating maybe a third of that space or a percentage of that space to preservation and continuing the landrace work, continuing to try to, encourage other people. We're going to certainly be the type of a company that is accessible by the remnant community as well as the new community.
That's super exciting, man.
That's an exciting opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't, I'm still, at this point, let's just say I'm still in negotiations with them. So we've pretty much landed on an agreement for a contract and that, but I'm excited to start actually growing down there. That's the thing. It's been quite a while for us. I would say that this little project for these investors started 2 years ago. So, $1.5 million or more in 2 years, and they still haven't grown a plant yet. So they've been real patient dealing with Mass and the regulation. The good news is that we've really been represented well, in regulation. We've crossed all our T's, dotted our I's, developed a real good relationship with the Cannabis Commission down there. We've all got our agent cards already. We're ready to go. We just got to get that last inspection done.
How does it work once you have your crop ready? Can you guys sell it directly to consumer, or do you sell to a third-party retailer? Do you have a retail store, or how does it?
Yeah, we'll start out selling to third-party dispensaries. Couple dispensaries that we have confidence are going to, handle the product properly and things like that. I think there's probably a long-term plan to try to get vertically integrated, but in my opinion, I think it's best to stick to what you do best and try to stand out in that fashion and let everybody else pull you into the other markets. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to come out of the gate, being exactly who we say we are, and we'll see how it goes. This is all new over here. The good news is that the market is, there's an extreme shortage right now in Massachusetts. There's no better place to sell cannabis at this point. The last numbers that I heard were above $3,000 and just below $4,000. So that's a pound for mids,
Wow.
and that's not,
Is that because there's a shortage?
That's
of
right. That's a shortage of cultivators and a shortage of good material hitting the market. I mean, it's a great place because right now, what we have for people from Connecticut and New York driving across the border into Mass, and New Hampshire to get bud, and so there's an extreme shortage. The politicians are onto it, though. I don't know if you heard about recently, but the 5 governors over here, New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, I believe Maryland, Connecticut, all met up, and they're trying to figure out a way to strike some kind of an interstate deal, right?
A nickel bag of
is
soda in the park, I want in. It's the regulation rodeo. Everybody, hold
yeah,
on.
so it's crazy. California's over there in this big, vast, huge, they got their own continent almost. And then, you know how small Massachusetts is. Jody surely knows how small these states over here in New England are, and even south of us. And it is a real big problem. There's a lot of flower, I suspect, driving across these state lines right now. I mean, there always has been, but now I think there's even more, because what we have in Maine is a market that's not even half of that. Pounds are, I think I heard guys that are selling pounds here for $1,400 to dispensaries.
But that's like a 2-hour drive, like in my mind.
Yeah, you can toss you can toss a baseball down there, and it's, they're going to be eager to fix that. And I think that works in your favor. These new little problems are going to arise, and they're going to have to solve them. And the only way they're going to be able to solve them is through federal decriminalization to start. So they need to get on it.
Well, let me ask you
how that's going to actually play out, because if you look at, like, even in the hemp space, even though it's like federally regulated, every state wants their tax dollars, and like different legislation that's being passed by different states, some of it is it's gonna raise issues of like interstate commerce clause and who gets to regulate. And I don't know how that's going to play out, but it's something that crossed my mind today as I was like looking at some of like New York State's proposed regulations for dealing with hemp, which is vastly more liberal than anything in the cannabis space.
Right, but I've realized this recently, that California has such a rich history in cannabis cultivation that automatically the percentage of people coming out of the gates in the new legal market are better producers than the average percentage of people coming out of the legal market in these different states, including my own. And I saw that because we were the first, along with Colorado. But in a state like Massachusetts, where it was limited, it was high stakes to get in, people got in with a bunch of money. And typically the people with a bunch of money don't want to work with anybody that doesn't have an education. There's very narrow-minded. And so we've seen these facilities pop up, in these states, and they grow a bunch of shitty weed. And now, I guess my point is that it's providing, in the way that it's rolling out state by state, it's actually, the shitty weed comes out, and then it gives on the back end an opportunity for those of us who have been cultivating, who actually have some skill set, to come in and play before the federal thing just drops. Because when the federal thing just drops, it's going to be another wave of that shit, of shitty weed being grown by a lot of people, which is fine. I don't have any problem with people growing a bunch of shitty weed, but
that's the problem with like regulation in my mind. I hate when they try to portray it as like a bunch of people who don't want to do things safely or don't want to pay taxes, because that's not really what it's about, right? This regulation limits outcomes and creates monopolies, and that leads to really bad consumer choice, because if their only options are to go with some mass produced then they're going to be missing out on a whole world. And then there's a whole world of opportunity for smaller farmers that are within the economy. And so instead of concentrating the wealth within a few corporations, you have a bunch of like industrious craftsmen who are working, and that's where it really like gets under my skin. Yeah, I could go on for days about that.
Yeah. I don't know how many cultivators there are in Massachusetts. The last time I looked at the list, I'm talking of people that are approved or in the pipeline. But I think it's on the number of that there were maybe 40 to 60 applications that they were trying to run through early on, and I believe recently it's gotten up to it's just application. Yeah.
How many are actually processed? How many licensed cultivators are there in Massachusetts?
Yeah, now I don't know the answer to that right now because that's changing all the time. But I can tell you that there were probably only, 6 months ago, there might have only been about 18 that were really licensed with the state through the new program. The problem is, here's the problem. In order to be a cultivator, or there's 4 different kind of licensed cultivator, just all the different licenses. You have to have a covenant with the city. So this is how it begins. You have to go to whatever city you're going to be in, wherever you're going to have your facility, wherever you're going to be based at, and you have to have an agreement with the town. If you do not have that covenant, you can't even start your application. So the covenant begins with the town, and it usually comes with some all kinds of fun. Yeah. So and then you fill out the application, go through the process, and I don't think you can get through it in 12 months, even if you're the smallest guy. And I honestly don't know how you can get in the game in mass unless you have $1 million to start with. And that's on the cultivation side I'm talking, or even their smallest license. I mean, you can probably get a smaller one and get through it, but you're going to hire a lawyer and you're going to do a lot more than a person's probably willing to do. Or maybe some guys are just going to throw their money away and grow some bad weed. But yeah,
$3 costs a pound.
It's not hard to compete in the next 5 years in Massachusetts. I think is the thing that I feel very fortunate about. When I made the decision to switch from engineering to horticulture, years or less than that, I had no idea that today I'd be holding a cannabis agent card for the state of Massachusetts versus where I came from in the past, guerrilla growing and all of that. I've cultivated large grows, outdoor, indoor, underground, done a lot up here. Whenever, like I said, that Great Recession hit in 2008, not only was it that I hold one of those shitty mortgages, but I also was in the housing industry. So it was kind of like a double whammy. And the best way to survive was with a business that's recession proof, which is cannabis.
Amazing.
It actually thrives in a recession.
Give thanks for that blessing and opportunity.
Yeah, straight up. That's what happened. That's what happened to a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah. They will stay in my home, thank God.
Let me ask you this. What you said you were talking earlier about you and your partner were on the quest to gather genetics from every continent, or just in general. What are you searching for? We got listeners. We have people comes out to Portland. Like, what's on your wish list?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would love to have the Congolese that Jodri was talking about. Oh man,
recently. That's done. I'm looking at it right now. Done.
I'd love to have some of those F2 tested.
That will magically. That'll all magically get there. So that's easy. I mean, dig deep, man.
I'd love to find something from actually right in on the other side of Tibet, in China, you know, from Central Asia. That'd be epic, because nobody's talking about that, at least in the landrace community on IG or some of the places that I kind of that we kind of talk to people. Some of the old school hybrid, I'd love to have the old original bubblegum back. I've been told that it's here in Maine. I've had some guys brag about it, and, you know, but it's really hard to find the one, like the same one that Adam Dunn talks about. It's the one that I messed with. It was really good stuff. But landrace side, I'd like to find some stuff south of the equator now, and I'm looking more at Africa and South America. Those are some spots that we get. That's to have the Durban back. I've had people offer, and people tell you they're going to send you seeds or bring you by plants or do something, and most of those promises have fallen short. So I'd love to find some stuff from there. Our focus, you know, we sit down every so often, say about every quarter or so, and kind of go through our focus. You know, what are we doing? Okay, what's the next step? And with the landrace stuff, and our idea is that, you know, if you're a breeder and you want to breed like we want to do, you want to have every crown, every color in the box. It's kind of an analogy that Jodrey used with Mean Gene. You know, Mean Gene's playing with all the colors, and I thought that was a great way to kind of perceive, if you're a breeder, you want to have access to, if you're looking for what we're looking for. And that's stuff that's very new, original, that we can even maybe tweak with some of these domestic varieties that have already been bred well for structure, that have already been bred well for resistances, but that maybe have left some stuff behind, you know. So usually the domestic hybrids that we're after are old school, and then the landrace stuff, we're looking for real landrace, you know, if we can get to it. And if not, we're looking for farmed varieties from other regions that have been responsibly cultivated for a long time. It's hard to figure out whether that's been done. You know, at my age, you know, when somebody, I hate it when people give me seeds. You know, I'm like, you know, I need a lot more information about somebody's seed time. You know, I got so many seeds that I need to go through of my own that it makes me nervous to even think that I'm going to follow New Fella's vision. And New Fella, you know, maybe he's got a great vision, he's got some great seeds, but it seems like 8 out of 10 times that I pop those, they're not what I thought they might be. So, yeah. So that's kind of that's the vision we for. I'm really trying to breed for production varieties right now, though. Stuff that's going to do good for us over there in Western Mass. Stuff that's going to do good indoor and in a greenhouse early on for us. I'm still going to breed outdoors. I'm still going to, you know, continue to do the other stuff, because I know that ultimately our long-term plan is to probably full spectrum cannabis, you know, 80%, hopefully. I'd like to see us get up to that 70 to 80%.
You ran the Panama Reds recently,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
How was that? What was the experience like? What did you see? What did you find? Was that the type of southern
were these the
varietal
same
that you're looking
genetics? Like, let's trace them back. Where did they come from? The ones that you
Yeah.
had?
Yeah, great. So my partner got a hold of Coastal Seeds, or whoever was messing with Coastal Seeds at the time, I suspect, or that's what he told me. And this was about, let's see, when did I pop the Panama Reds? Not last year, year before, or the year before that. So it's 2 or 3 years ago. the Coastal Red pack. Matter of fact, I still have the pack because I still have half of those seeds. I think I only popped half of them. And I got one really, really good female that I decided to keep out of that stuff. I was pretty impressed. I was able to finish it here, but I had a friend finish it indoor, and we really liked it. It's not the Panama Red that I tasted back in the day, nor did it look anything like that, I will say, because the Panama Red that I had in northern Indiana was from somebody else, and it was much more colorful a bud than the ones that this one grew. But nonetheless, great taste. I had a friend, Brad or not, and I said, "What do you got me growing here?" And he said that he actually got in contact back with whoever his contact was at Coastal, and they told him that they had run an Afghan actually into Panama Red, and that's what these were. So, nonetheless, it did grow more. Yeah, that's all I know.
Yeah, I was with Coastal. I was involved with that project.
Yeah.
And some of the seeds that were hunted through were from Reefer Man's Panama Red, and so that might be where the Kush came from. I think there was 25%. I think that's what he had crossed into it. But then some of the other seeds came through Kata, some of his old buddies. And then I believe some of the other seeds came from BCSC. And so it was a large number of Panama Red sources. And then we had a cut of the Panama Red, which was purple. And so there was multiple females that went into that. And then we did a bunch of like genomic and chemotypic screening to identify the different cannabinoids. I'm running them I'm running them right now. I'm screening through them. I popped about 200 of them. I'd say 25% of them are straight purple, right? Purple stem and leaf and flowers. And then in the rest of them, I'm seeing like they look like they're green, but then like as the kid mixes, the buds are purple.
Yeah, same. The female we selected and the cut that I still hold is kind of much like what you're describing, except not all purple. I was getting green leaves. They did start to go purple though towards the end of the season in flower, and by the time it finished, it wasn't quite as purple as the Beldia, but it was going that way. But they were purple stemmed or red stemmed, if you will. The one that I chose was from day one.
That's what I'm choosing for all the males. For all the males that I'm choosing, I'm gonna like isolate down to some of the females, because what I'm noticing is that those purples have the nose. Like there's an incredible terpene profile on those. Not but I had, long story short, I had an accident. My sense of smell has been impaired. But there are certain smells that will like trigger a surreal sensory response, and so that's kind of how my nose identifies now, right? It's like, whoa, that's strong. There's no depth to my sensation except the Richter scale. How intense is the smell? But I can't tell you what it smells like anymore. And there's an effervescent quality to all of the purple ones. And that's.
Could we expect there to be CBD in those Panama Reds? Could we expect there to be any CBD at all in those Panama Reds?
That's kind of like what I'm looking for. The CBD, CBG, the whole spectrum of cannabinoid profiles and ratios.
Nice.
And so I'm looking for non-THC varietals, but
Yeah.
I'm also looking for ones that are going to tolerate the cold. I'm looking for ones that are going to smell amazing. This is in my research facility, so if I run into some things that are hot, it's fine. It just can never make it to market. But as far as like in my line breeding, I'm not going to throw away important traits because they test hot. I'll just bank that trait and then focus on what I can start to put out into the production fields.
Yeah. The Panama Red that we saved, I had some guys finish it indoor, and they were pressed hot, unfortunately. But I do trust their opinion. These are some people that I actually use to test some of my own stuff. So I'm eager to get it finished at some point. You know, it's not often that you hold on to a freaking plant for 18 months and not taste it, or 2 years. You know, geez, I've had that for 2.5 years, and I've not tasted it, but I've heard all about it. So I tried outdoors in Maine. It wouldn't finish. It wanted to go to, late October or November here. I got a late trigger, just like Joshua was explaining earlier, that he has up there. Got the same scenario here. So you're not going to finish unless you dap it here.
I think some of those varieties aren't about finishing. I think they're like I've grown like a Thai variety called the Manga here, and it wasn't done until February. And it survived the frost and it survived the rains, but it just came. It got to the point where like the first batch of seeds that were on it were mature, but like if I was gonna wait for amber or for like the white hairs to like turn, by the time the ones that I was waiting for would turn, there'd be a whole bunch of new white ones. So I almost feel like an interesting experiment to try to harvest them just continually.
Yeah, I was going to
because it's ready for smoke. The tops get ready for smoke.
I was going to try to run Highland Thai that we got some seeds from, and I planted those right next to the Panama Red, which would be great to get. Speaking of seeds that I'm looking for, but Highland Thai, a farmed variety, was all we could get a hold of, and those wanted to go to December. They wanted to be so late, so I didn't get to breed them outdoors to Panama. But so we're holding on to that stuff. Holding on to those 6 other seeds that I have of that, those coastal ones, and then I think we still have some Highland Thai stuff. And hopefully, when I get down to Mass, I can move some of those projects forward. Those will have to happen indoors for us.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any plant limitations, like plant count limitations, or is it a canopy limitation in Mass?
Canopy.
Canopy, nice. Yeah, I'm actually going to go out to do a project in Colorado, and I just learned that they have a plant limit restriction, which is extremely challenging, obviously, for breeding.
Yeah, not interested.
Right, exactly.
Whew. Yeah, I mean, you certainly try to help those people out, but whenever I think about, if we want to expand out of Massachusetts somewhere next, or if these 5 states decide to do some kind of interstate thing, I don't want to be anywhere where there's plant count. I've been dealing with plant count the whole time I've been in Maine, and it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that I can have 7,000 seedlings that are under 12 inches littering my property, but I can only have 12 flowering plants.
Right.
I mean, as a breeder, you would think that, and that's something that I hope happens in regulation in the future as breeders where they can have higher plant counts, you know, and you know, I don't know how they handle the large amounts of flower that can be grown by high plant counts, but you can reduce their size and say a height limit, you know. Yeah, okay, we'll let you flower 100 plants, but just don't grow them any taller than 3 feet. Well, that's easy enough if you're breeding.
It is, but there's some things that, you know,
You can't do.
You want to. I mean, there's an argument that you definitely want to see plant do its full on thing, you know, before you start working with it. You know, when you're sifting through a population, yes, you're right. You know, running small plants, and I'm a big proponent of that. But
so are you?
Sorry, what did you say?
Plant count, or do you have a plant count in Washington?
In Washington, no, I don't have a plant count. It's a 10,000 square feet for my canopy. You know, we have different tier levels, but I have the mid level, and no, I can run as many plants as I want. And so, I do so.
Yeah.
But I like to. I have enjoyed being able to see a full term, you know, expression. Yeah.
That's one of the best things about switching over to hemp right now. It's like I'm not limited by plants, and so like as a breeder, I just get to like pop as many seeds as I have of whatever to like find the traits that I want. It's like they have to get over. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what state are you in, Bam?
I'm in California, but California is a weird state because it's all county by county, and kind of like how you're talking about that letter, you need, if you need some backdoor friendships in order to like make things a reality. And I just got tired of dealing with the fuckery, and I was like, okay, well, hemp is a space where as a breeder, I have opportunities. I can work on a ton and a myriad of other characteristics and traits that have nothing to do with THC, all the other cannabinoids, cold hardiness, mildew resistance, soil types. The list goes on, right? And there's enough THC that I can scan through that when they come around to the changes, I can plug that right back in. But then the rest of the stuff that I get to work on as a breeder, that starts to shape substance and style. And so I don't think that I'm going to have like this huge catalog of seeds. I'm going to have 4 seeds, 1 for each season. Right? Those are the seeds that I'm going to have, 1 for each season. And like, yes, I will incorporate like day neutral, but that's kind of
I think that's where breeding is going to end up. Actually, it's actually pretty intuitive of a thought process, because if you imagine you know, the tomato industry or whatever, the guy, you know, that bred Brandywine, the guy that bred, you know, whatever your favorite is,
Brandywine
is one guy that did. You know, so just need that one hit, right? I mean, you got some folks out there that have been at it way longer, and they've been able to compete down there in California. But I tell you, for us over here, it's been hard to watch. It's been really hard to watch some of the stuff that's gone on over there, and some of the things that have caused animosity, like you're talking about in the community. And I've seen people, you know, fight within the community, and so it makes it hard for us to reach out from over here and really discern who you want to connect with, because I think that's where the real power is at. This thing is going to go interstate, and it's going to go interstate in our lifetime. And he who has forged the best relationships early on, and I think even across from coast to coast, is really going to be the guys that are going to survive, because, you know, we definitely outnumber the West Coast in population and numbers, density of population. So it's a big market. I mean, I was totally surprised whenever I came up here how many people smoke, so I think it's great probably that you did step away and go to the hemp. And for a lot of us guys over here, I came out. I thought I'm going to go buy the books as soon as I went to college. I quit selling, excuse me, anything on the black market. I just totally alienated myself from it. Not those folks and not those people. I made sure to keep my connections, but I sort of jumped out, if you will, and said, you know what, I'm doing it, guys. So here I go. Wish me luck. I thought a lot more people would come out as well by now, and it's bad. I see a lot of people actually, just because of the way the market is here in Maine, in mass, actually getting out of it as well because it costs so much to get in. And I think they're gonna start cracking down a little harder on the black market again. Not the war on drugs style, but but they're going to start cracking down on it because now you've got all these investor monies that are coming in, and and some folks are in pockets of the politicians, and if they start seeing their investments dwindle away, they're going to start crying loud enough that they're going to do something about it. And I think that's going to be them coming down on the black market again up here.
It's what's happening out here, and it's such a failed policy because it makes zero sense. You can't. I don't want to call it, isn't going to solve the problems that plague their system. Their model doesn't value human capital. It doesn't value wisdom. It values return on investment and investor inputs, right? And so that it's a great way to perpetuate the system that already exists. The funding for the war on drugs continues. That lobby, that industry that revolves around law enforcement or interpretation of laws to enforce is financially beneficial. Continues to exist. It's scary because I feel like if all they would have to do is open up the licensing process, reduce the hurdles, allow everybody compete testing. Nobody's saying don't ban pesticides. There are reasonable forms of regulation, but if you can create situations of opportunities where everybody can compete, those that don't belong won't stay, and those that do will. And then there's no black market problem. People have to compete on merit and quality. And to me, that's the outcome that I want to see.
Yeah.
I was just, a few minutes back thinking when you were talking about breeding and comparing it, it's the developing market. If we think about breeding of other things, animals, other flowers, people are that do that. People that are breeders of dogs or horses or chickens, they breed those specific varietals. Whatever the term is, a strain, cultivar. What breed is your dog? Is what people ask me, and I have a dog that's not very easy to identify, but he's new to the AKC. He's newly registered in the 1980s, a wire-haired pointing Griffon. And as I was kind of processing that, I was like, oh, the AKC. We don't even have a group yet, an organization to say this is OG Kush and this is what OG Kush looks like. And then we go to a competition and we get Chadwick's OG Kush against Bam's OG Kush against my OG Kush, you know, and have the walk around the circle, if you will, you know, and you know, maybe yours turns out a little bit more piney and mine turns out a little bit more lemon or whatever the hell, you know what I mean? Like we're breeding mutt on mutt on mutt and creating these wide, like we're just so in a different world, a different entire league of our own. And we're not going to be that. We're not going to have like, you know, unfortunately Phylos kind of just shot themselves in the foot, you know, when there was the Galaxy was a really cool concept that could, you know, really has helped out and will help out a lot of us have a better understanding. But I don't see us being, you know, here are the 100 cannabis cultivars, you know, it's going to be a totally different game.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to bottleneck down to, in my opinion, effects. And there'll be brands. There'll certainly be brands, but the early data, we've done a lot of research on this. The early data as far as branding goes, and packaging, and how you market your cannabis to the new market, that the customer is way more sophisticated. At least the customer that's spending the most money, which is actually my demographic, and a little bit above that, and a decade above me, but that they're a little bit more sophisticated and they're a little bit more interested in effect, and they're intimidated by dispensaries, and they're confused by all of these different strain names and don't understand why everybody's just not, you know, like what it's a cola, you know, so you got Coca-Cola and Pepsi and whatever, Dr. Pepper. You know, they don't understand why there needs to be 180 different strains that they might know, or really, yeah. So we're going to come out of the gate not identifying ourselves with strains. We certainly will be forthright and open about the breeding on the plants. Our thought process is, like, for instance, that we come out of the gate with something like, for instance, 620 Labs Focus. You know, so this is our best thin leaf variety that you can smoke if you want to, you know, focus on a project for hours and not lose your mind, you know, versus other effects like rest, sleep. Now, there are people that have done this out in California, actually. I'm not sure. I think it's Southern California, and it's supposed to be one of the better brands, top shelf, that markets in that same way. And I really like that concept. And then maybe give the person a link from the room into, you know, well, what is this flower, or what is this, you know, cannabis that I'm taking in, you know, where did it come from? And then boom, there's their URL or their link or the scan code, and then go right to our page, our web page on our site that describes, you know, exactly how we bred that plant, exactly how we decided to try to, you know, come up with that effect, and, you know, what we did.
Well, it's really difficult. I mean, I went into a dispensary today, and I'm own a bit of business in the state. I consider myself to know a fair amount about weed, and I'm so frustrated with going in there and buying shitty weed that I'm just like, all right, I'm not going to buy anything unless I know what it is anymore, because
Yeah.
and I can't for the life of me get a salesperson to help me, because, you know, like, you know, the lady. So I went in and I went to a store that usually has a dog walker variety by this company, Dog House, that I like. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it's Dog Walker, and Dog Walker is amazing. And I went in for that, right? And I was like, hey, you guys got any Dog Walker? And she flips over a pack, and it was a company I didn't know, and flower didn't look really that interesting. So I was like, okay, I think I'll pass on that. Thank you. And she goes, I got a Star Dog that's made with the Dog Walker. I'm like, oh, like, no, it's not. Number one.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And but I don't know. My point was that once that happened, like even all my past experience, I just kind of shut down, and I was just like, I can't buy. You know, like I kind of felt like I didn't want to go through every fucking nug in the store, which was what it was going to have to happen for me to find something I was going to be happy with, because she wasn't going to be able to help me find it, and so and then after I did that, I ended up picking something, and I got a Gorilla Glue, right? I went back to something else I knew. I was like, you had a Gorilla Glue, right? You know, and I went to my next stop, which was to buy beer, and here's where I'm kind of getting to my point. And I bought the same beer that I always buy, which is a really awesome, delicious IPA that is made in Yakima Valley, where 90% of the hops are grown in the world. It's where I'm from. And they know their hops there. They know their IPAs. It's a really delicious IPA. It's pretty much only sold in Washington State. And I'm a beer fanatic like I am a weed fanatic. And at the same time, I walk into the stores and look at the beer rack, and it's getting crazier and crazier. The IPAs is all we have up here. All we have is IPAs. And you walk into the grocery store, and there is a 40-foot wall of IPAs. And the graphics are intense. And I'm like, holy shit, I want to buy that one because the beer can looks so awesome. Everything's cans. And I've dabbled, right? I've done that. I've dabbled outside of what I've decided that I like, this handful of IPAs. I have one that's a little more bitter, one that's a little more fruity, one that's a little bit of combination of the two, right? I have my spectrum of IPAs I like, right? And I'm 39, and I'm just kind of like piecing this all together into this puzzle of what kind of weed are people going to buy? They're going to buy what's in their spectrum, and they're going to stick to it. And they want to be able to go to the store and not look at 100,000 choices because it's too confusing. Even as a guy who knows a lot about weed and is literally talking about this on a weed podcast, I went to buy weed today and was too overwhelmed by the choices. It was like, give me fucking Gorilla Glue, you know? So I don't know what that question is or that rant, but it was just what it was.
Yeah, they don't understand the market, and the people that are successful, they do understand the market. I mean, there are plenty of resources out there to see how people are buying cannabis, and because some of these bigger markets that have been early on, we've gotten plenty of data back that you can see real demographic anomalies where like. The fastest growing demographic is 55 to 65 years old. That's the fastest growing demographic in buying cannabis in the United States, and that's across medical and consumer cannabis. I call it consumer cannabis. I don't like the word recreational. I think that's terrible because it implies the wrong thing. Consumer is exactly what that second market really should be called. We don't call it recreational beer, or something else. But anyway, understanding those markets is so key. And like for instance, whenever we branded ourselves and chose logos, we had a professional come in, but we thought about that exact same thing that you're talking about, Joshua, where you walk into a place and you're overwhelmed maybe on a wall of 30, 40 different brands of different kinds of packaging with all these wild colors and this and that. We chose a color scheme to where ours is, you're going to be able to walk in and pick ours out from the door. You'll know our colors. They won't. There's very few cannabis brands have kind of chosen the color scheme that we chose. And then we thought about it like that. You've got to prove yourself in the joint. They're going to come back and buy your stuff twice or not. You find a good flower at the dispensary, you go buy it for a year solid. Tell me about it. I want to know where that dispensary's at. And there are some dispensaries that are doing that. And I think that those successful guys are probably out on the West Coast and and some in Colorado, but you got to be way ahead of the game. You got to be doing it right, to to get in this market and brand yourself and separate yourself from some of those other people. The question then becomes, how long can your product sit on those shelves until somebody recognizes it, and then does it have the shelf life to make it that point? Cannabis, so they might be real gassy and real great tasty, depending on processing and how they were grown. You know, you guys know as well as I do that their shelf life can be greatly impacted by how these people finish up the game.
100%. I mean, for instance, that Gorilla Glue gram I got today, the company I bought it from is a synthetic grower, which I really don't like to buy from. But they're also one of the best synthetic growers in our state. They're, you know, the equivalent to Jungle Boy status in our state. They're doing really cool stuff. And I'm not going to call them out or whatever. I've smoked their weed before, and they have all the cool hip crosses and stuff. And it just always, you're not always, but most of the time, I'm not that impressed with the smoke. And it's because of the shelf life and the packaging process. Like, I know that, like, I've seen their Instagram, I'm looking at the flower, you know, and I can tell that it was quality, you know, grown well. You know, maybe it doesn't taste as good all the way through because it's not grown with living organisms, but at the same time, I think the big thing that is really hurting everybody is the process, you know, and the sitting in the shelves, depending on your state system. You know, California struggles with, they have a distribution model where there's like a distributor in the middle of everything, you know.
There's most big commercial growers and everything you get in Maine, unless it's small batch stuff that's hit a dispensary, is grown you know, with salts in rock wool. These guys are just love rock wool here, and then down Mass there are some other guys that are doing some other stuff, but nobody's coming out of the gate and calling themselves organic or you know, natural methodologies or regenerative methodologies, and that's because, you know, it's not easy to do, and it's not something that I learned overnight, was successful at right away, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys. Yeah, the quality of the cannabis in the dispensaries over here is just as bad as it sounds like it is there. That's why I'm eager to jump in mass. For instance, there's 100,000 square foot facility going in down the road from us, and then we'll just be a small 10,000 square foot facility. Now we have plans, you know, certainly to grow to be up to about a couple of years after we you know, we hit the market, but you know, we're poised to grow slow and to grow with tangible efforts that are going to be long lasting. You know, we've got a great facility. We've went through and done everything. You know, we spared no cost whenever it came to our needs to keep, you know, IP problems down. This building's sealed up wonderfully. We've got, you know, over $100,000 in a couple of HVAC units that could probably handle a whole mall. You know, backup generators, everything's just been done right for us. We can't wait to start it up. The Maine market's not even worth being in.
So I have a question about the research that you guys did in terms of like narrowing it down to 4 descriptions, like focus or relaxation or whatever. I don't know. I've had experience working cannabis retail before, and in my opinion, you can't make statements like that. Like sometimes something that's focus for one group of people is actually relax for another group of people. And
That's right.
so,
So how do you get over?
so you guys found that in your research as well?
Yeah. Well, no. What we were able to do. First off, let me say where the research. I can't remember the name of the company. If I can get your email later. I think the company was like maybe ECM. This is a marketing company that did solid research across the United States, from state to state, on just whatever data was there and available. So certainly this is only the data that's available to them. There's probably some data out there that would change these numbers a bit, but so we got that report, or I did, and I think it's like 30, 40 pages, but it was very enlightening. It was very enlightening, and it made sense as a cannabis person, a lifer, to read through it and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's, that I can see the market doing that, and it really has helped us to decide how we're going to go into the market in mass. So I thought about the problem that you're talking about. For instance, there are some varieties that person get one effect and the other person maybe get a different effect, like say sleep and awake. And but there are varieties, and you probably have experienced this yourself, that I don't care who gets it. There's a particular variety in Maine called ICU that it's only grown up here. I only know a particular group of people here that grow it, and we've always called it ICU because no matter who you give it to, as soon as they smoke it, they're going to wish they were in the ICU, or they're going to act like they are. Like it puts them down. I mean, it really knocks you back for a minute. Especially, I've seen people losing their balance with it. Like, Jesus, man, holy cow! I don't know if I'm having an anxiety attack or So it's a very specific kind of buzz, and I never had anybody get an opposite effect off of ICU. So I do believe that there are some plants out there that are coming, or maybe that they're bred just well enough, and maybe they peak just the right cannabinoids and have left many behind that will provide that effect for most people only. Like we've eliminated some of that entourage that comes with different things that might give off a different effect. The fact that lies in a lot of these domestic varieties that we have here in the United States goes to that, it really is a cesspool of mutts because of the way the breeding has gone down. Hopefully we can unlock and go back and find some of the things that might have been left behind by doing the type of work that I'm doing.
And just anecdotally, I'm one of those people, like I smoke super heavy, in quotes, indica dominant varieties all day long, and it gives me energy. And I smoke a fuck ton of weed, like 1 pound to 2 pounds of weed a month for a decade plus, and I do hard labor all day and work really hard on my farm, and I'm 60 hours would be a light week for me type deal. And I'm just saying that I fit that stereotype where, when I'm smoking, I smoke Gorilla Glue all day long, and then maybe switch to dog walker in the evening. However, there's been a few, and I don't smoke hardly any sativas. They just, I don't get weird on them. They just don't, the flavors, I just haven't found a flavor profile that really jazzes me. It's mostly been in these indica strong varieties that I found the flavor profile that really is hitting what I want. And it's a lot. It's the earthy fuel, skunky, gnarly stuff. But there's been a few varieties over time that I've come across, and I can remember the Blue Rhino for existence, or example. It puts me out. I could smoke it first thing in the morning and it would put me down. And so I think that there's got to be some truth in there, in my limited experience.
And
I could also just wind up shaping the breeding, right? Because all types exist, and then and then you breathe toward the one that is more universal, because maybe there are some characteristics that are more universal. It's just it becomes, this art imitate life, or does life imitate art? You know, it's if you have these categories, then that's going to shape your breeding to produce varietals that are as universal as possible within that,
Sure.
that category. Right?
We thought about giving a 2-word name, you know, throwing a flavor and an effect in. And we haven't landed on anything for sure yet. You know, like I said, we quite a ways before we have a flower that's going to hit market. But I think what's very important is that we've really done the research on understanding the consumer, and the consumer that's going to be coming to us in the future. The consumer that's going to be coming to us in the future is going to be a new consumer. And more and more people are going to know less and less about these old school varieties and all of these old school names. I mean, they're going to be around, and there's going to be, but the remnant of a community is going to be out there, but it's not going to be the larger part of the market, and it's not going to be what drives, you know, what most people that are at least trying to sell at scale, retail, small scale. So you really got to know what that consumer is going to be like. And I don't feel like that the consumer, the first question is, why does the consumer even want to try cannabis? Why do they really want to try it? The number one reason in this marketing study by far was for rest or for sleep. That was the number one reason. Yeah. And then as those reasons that people decided that they want to smoke, they went down. Pain was like 4th on the list. You know, there were quite a few different reasons that topped that. Dealing with anxiety was one of them. And then so those are effects, right? I mean, most people that are going to smoke aren't going to. I believe that there's going to be people that are going to smoke as one, you know, the younger consumer. But that part of the market is only really got, it's only about 18% of the market as it is right now. Where the big money is at and where the top end money is at are the people that can spend money, the people that have the money in their wallet to buy top shelf stuff. And that's the older demographic, the people that are buying into that, hey, the cat's out of the bag, cannabis is safe. Cannabis was actually an okay thing the whole time, you know, and those people are going to go into these places and they're going to go, you know, what's your best stuff, you know, or, and then they're going to probably buy for things like effect, things like taste. They're certainly going to explore, but they're going to want to see branding that is reliable, stuff that doesn't look like that it's been graffiti, you know. I think this study even narrowed down that the packaging that was way easier to read, more simple, was way better than packaging that was too colorful, that had multicolors, you know, like say 5 different ones that looked like a lot of graffiti. Yeah, so
it's the same thing that I was experiencing today, man. And I'm a guy who loves art, who loves graffiti, who loves colorful things. But I'm looking at it and I'm going, that's a beautiful package. That's a beautiful fucking jar. Where is the cultivar? God damn it! I don't care what any of this. Show me the cultivar. Show me the weed. You know. But,
doesn't mean there's great side of a real nice package, but you know what? People are gonna go for it. You know, they're gonna. I think we're gonna have pretty good luck with that. That, you know, pushing our marketing that way.
Well, I was just going to add that also too, the reasons you listed that folks would use cannabis, the top reasons, anxiety, sleep, pain, those are like you just described society, American society that's dealing with being unhealthy because of our shitty food that has, you know, no vitamins in it, that produces in us unhealthy bodies. You know, we're talking about the level we're talking about cannabis with, the level that we're talking about the flavor and the distinction of effect. Nobody gets like this on vegetables. And if anybody, I always want to like try to mention this as much as I can, because for me, when I first grew vegetables, I started growing cannabis first. And then when I grew vegetables, the way I grew cannabis, it changed my fucking world on it taste buds wise. It was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into tomatoes real deep and learning about all these different flavors of these tomatoes. And it was,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and all of it, it's amazing. And I like always want to tell people like, dude, do yourself a fucking favor and grow a little vegetable garden just like you would a cannabis garden outside, and taste what good vegetables taste like, and then go to the grocery store. Go to the best fucking grocery store you can find, the most expensive one, and taste the food, and it won't be half as good as what you did in your backyard. And that's just like the reality that we have to understand, is that for the past X amount of years, we've been consuming cannabis that's been grown in small plot backyards or basements, and it's been very high quality, and that's not what commercial farming does. And it's that, I'm not saying that's okay, and that we should just be okay with smoking mids. That's not the I guess the point is that we should influence the market all the way around to where like people look and make the conclusion that I did and go, holy shit, the co-op here doesn't have that good of food. Even though, you know, I totally like lift up the co-op, I support the co-ops, like I buy at the co-op, I'm a member of multiple co-ops. I'm always just wanting I'm wanting to push for higher quality, you know, and demanding that.
Over half the population lives in urban centers too. So that's something else to always think about whenever you think about marketing or you think about growing and the opportunities that people have to even grow their own vegetables. You can do it in pots for sure, and there's a lot of ways. But I actually grew up around vegetable farming was my family from an early age, and organically too. Nonetheless, I didn't even remember my grandfather ever doing anything but you know, compost and lime and just real simple things. And the food was always just awesome, and I carried those things on myself. During my guerrilla growing years, I do have to admit that whenever I first got into it, you know, a lot of the guys that allowed me to, you know, because I was a visitor to Maine, if you will, a flatlander, as you're called up here, I had to grow their methods early on. And, you know, it was kind of interesting because maybe there'd be 100 holes, we'd call them. And I'd say, hey, man, let me do these two over here my way. And you know, I'd bring compost teas, a gallon each time for just those. And it was pretty easy in a couple of years to convince some guys to get away from Blue Water, to get away from Miracle Grow, to get away from Seven and dusting their plants with just terrible chemicals. Had guys putting mouse bait killer around their plants. I'm like, dude, you know, you come back and if the mice don't get to it, it's just soaking poison right into your roots. I never thought about that. That don't get in the flowers though. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen some crazy methods up here.
Well, dude, I just want to say thank you again for taking time. I mean, I'm looking at my time clock. It's 9:40. You are 3 hours ahead of me. Thank you very much for taking the time to share what you've been down and what you've been up to. And I'm posting up the Beldia, you know, as we speak. So thank you so much for donating that and being willing to be a part of the whole thing. And yeah, how do we folks reach you? I know you have an Instagram account and you also have a YouTube account.
Yeah. They're both Rhodes on Instagram. It's Chadwick.Rhodes, Rhodes. And if you want to email me, my email's chadwick.rhodes@maine.edu. I still have my university email, and yeah, my YouTube channel is the same, Chadwick Rhodes. So I used to have a lot of videos. It's kind of odd because there was a time I had maybe 50 videos up on my YouTube channel, but I went to college and I started, as I got through plant science, as I got through soil science, as I got through plant pathology, I would listen back to some of my videos, and about 70 seconds in, I'd be like, well, that's wrong. I was like, oh yeah, I don't know what I was talking about there. So I just deleted everything. Before I got my degree and at least got myself educated about plant science, because there were some dogmas that even I was carrying on myself that I found out that, just actually weren't true. Can't really think of what those are now. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, Bam. It was nice to finally have met and talked to you. I look forward to seeing the seed regenerative thing grow, and thanks a lot.
Thanks for being so candid and open and sharing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys all for watching. I just want to, please hit the like and subscribe button. Do all that thing. Leave some comments if you will. That really helps get the computer thing working along, doing its thing, and so other people can see the content. And please check out regenerativeorganiccannabis.com. We have the conferences coming. We're going to be in Portland, Maine, April 17th, 18th, and 19th. Chadwick will be there. Pretty sure he's going to have some beans available. We're definitely going to be having him on the panel. And we have a couple other dates. We have Humboldt coming up next, the end of January 31st, February 1st and 2nd in Garberville at the I always mess up the name. The Richardson Grove RV Park in Garberville, right across from One Log Treehouse, Kevin's Dispensary, and then we also have Portland, Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, that is March 27th, 28th, and 29th at the Grow Greens MI warehouse. Really awesome indoor. I think they're the largest indoor grow store in the country. They ship out all over the place. It's huge. It was I think a 10, 15, 20,000 square foot warehouse of all the grow products. It's awesome. And they're all zipping around. All the employees are zipping around on hoverboards. It's kind of fun. It's a cool spot. So anyways, thank you for that. And you can find Bam, where can we find you at? Did we lose him? He's he might be grabbing a smoke. He's on his Stock and Bean, and you can find him on Instagram. He's got a couple accounts there, Bamboo. And anyways, thank you guys. Oh, we got you back, bro. Hey, that's all right. I was stumbling through trying to say hi. I'm like, oh, Stock and Bean, blah, blah. So here, hit us with it.
You can find me at Bollywood Bam on Instagram, and my new little project, We Reap What You Sow at Instagram. That's for Stock and Bean.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.